Gather round for the Oke Farm Pondcast with Doug Davis.
All right, here we are, Mr. Curtis. In keeping with the spirit of the way that we do things, you have no idea what I'm about to say, and up until a few minutes ago, neither did I. I really like the idea of at least for now, like just going with where the energy is. And so when I was thinking about like what gets me so excited, the thing that popped in my mind was this week's new arrival of one of our new residents. And I thought before I talked too much about that, I wanted to share a quick story that frames the way I think about when people are coming to the farm. So if rewind back to probably late summer of 2023, so for those of y'all who don't know the timeline, we actually broke ground in everything that's at the farm, with the exception of like the olive orchard and here at the laboratory. Everything's basically been built, planted, grown since February of 2022. So a year and a half after we got started, I had the standing garden where you and Jenny live. I had the infrastructure in there. I had all the orchards finished up. Standing gardens was planted, looking really nice. And so we had a lot of the infrastructure in place, but nothing like what we do today, of course. So I'll never forget. I can't remember what the holiday was, but we were going to be celebrating something. And I told my wife that I'd had a call from a couple in Michigan. And I had done tours up until this point, but this was going to be the first tour that I did with someone who was going to, expend not only money, but a lot of time to like travel down here. And I had spoken with this couple on the phone, and they really wanted to see the place. And so I drove up, I think it was on a Saturday, and I was so nervous. My nerves were around, is it going to live up to their expectation? Like, in other words, they're willing to spend money and time. Is their experience, whether they become owners or not, like, is it going to meet their expectations? And I am by nature a people pleaser. Like I get a lot of joy out of connecting with people and sharing with people and ensuring that people are fulfilled from an experience maybe that I'm involved with. So the context is I'm like sitting on pins and needles, worried sick. They show up, they rent a car, they drive in from the airport. This is my first out of town tour. And in many ways, kind of the first major production level tour. So I drive them around the farm and we're talking and I'm engaging with them. And the whole time I'm like trying to read their faces, trying to feel energy coming from them about whether they're excited or not. And they are very gracious. And so anyways, tour ends. We have a great conversation that day, and then we have some follow-up conversations. But the thing that I walked away from that day was they were overwhelmed by both the scale and the execution of what we, not me, but the whole team of people that are involved at the farm has both envisioned and now come up with. And so with knowing that in the background since September of 23 or whenever that was, fast forward now to almost 3 years later, there's not hardly a day that goes by that I don't have that same anxiety. Everybody that comes still hope and wonder, will they like it? Will they think, it lives up to the hype? And I can honestly say, not from a place of arrogance, but as of now, we've not ever had someone come who doesn't essentially in one form or another make the statement, I can't believe the scale and the execution. And so so now that you know that story and you know how I feel about things, when someone decides to become an owner and trust us to build their cabin and they're going to live their lives here, you can imagine how that feeling is exaggerated. So earlier this week, we had one of our new owners move in, and she is coming from, do you remember? Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania. Yeah, Pennsylvania. She's coming from Pennsylvania. And she had only been down here one time when she made the decision. So here it is, 7 months later, she's moving in. Not only is she's seeing her cabin for the first time, but she's re-experiencing the farm. And all I can think of is she's been up in Pennsylvania, like waiting for this day.
Yeah.
And so I met her here when she drove in with her daughter on, I think it was Monday morning. And when she drove in, it was that same anticipation. I was like watching for her, and she's much more plays her cards close to the chest. And so I'm looking for any hint of excitement or whatever else. So we're walking through her cabin, and I'm asking her, well, is this what you expected? And we're talking, and it's very just normal, just a normal. She's not overly excited or anything. And so, we spend the day together and so forth and so on. And of course she says some things, but then she sends me a text later on that said, this place exceeds anything that she could have ever imagined. Wow. And she's so happy. And so that was a long start to where I wanted to really start the discussion today. And that is, it's not just me, it's everybody here at the farm. Like everybody, I'm not saying it's a healthy anxiety, but there's such a desire to build a place where when people come, they feel welcome. When people come, they feel cared for. When people come, they're met with an abundance of produce and food, that there are activities, programs, relationships that they can immediately feel engaged and welcome. And so, I start the podcast off today with just this sigh of relief, but yet again, someone who's trusted us has come and it's blown away their expectations. And so I'll just pause there for a second and let you respond and see what you think about that.
Well, I love that. And while you're describing it, I was thinking about Jenny and I's move in September of 2024. And now we had the benefit of having visited the farm many times, just being in St. Augustine and able to drive up.
Right.
And having known you and Angela for better part of 20 years. But one thing I want to hone in on what you mentioned, which was the team here and the staff.
Yeah.
And I'd love for the direction of this conversation to maybe talk about and highlight some of the folks that work here.
Yeah.
There has been an increased level of energy with the arrival this week, I think, and it is a very positive energy. And what that tells me, and I remember that in September of 2024, and it's the same energy that you feel when we have one of our farm-to-table dinner events or any time we're welcoming guests to the farm. And it's genuine and authentic. And that tells me that everybody who is a part of the farm team, no matter what role that they're in, genuinely has ownership in this project. It's not, I don't get the impression from them, and hopefully you'll have the opportunity, we'll bring some people on this podcast to talk to them directly if they want to. I know a lot of them are camera shy, but they love this place.
Yeah.
And we've talked a lot, in previous weeks about the philosophy behind the farm and all of that. But when you start getting into the tangible, what is the farm? Yeah, it's a piece of property, but it's really comprised of not just the vision, but the people here who are making it happen. Because if it wasn't for them, there wouldn't be anything here.
100%.
And Jenny and I, since there really hasn't been any other full-time residents, we do have cabin owners that come in from time to time, and we love when we have the opportunity to engage with them. And those encounters and experiences have been nothing short of amazing. We're starting to have more and more of those as more activities are taking place on the farm. We've had the opportunity to really develop close bonds and relationships with the staff here at the farm. And it's people from a wide range of backgrounds. There's many local people here. There's some people who've relocated from other parts of the country to be here. And just like the the owner, the future owner, the current owners, future owners, they have embraced that vision of we're creating something really unique here. And for them, I'm sure it makes it more than just a job. It really, they're able to participate in a very meaningful way into what the farm is all about. And yeah, it's a job. They are working, but I get the sense, at least in the relationships that I have with the staff and the team here, that they genuinely love what we're doing. And so, of course, it's natural to get excited when you're inviting somebody in who's going to be here full time, that you're going to see. Like I had the first time I got to meet our new residents this week was driving home last night, and I saw him out on a bike ride, and I just stopped and rolled down my window and introduced myself. And we're actually having them over for dinner. Jenny and I are hosting them to dinner on Sunday night. And, you know, I mean, it was a great interaction, and they just had big smiles on their face. And I could tell, like, they're so excited to be here. We're so excited to welcome them here. And it's nice to see the farm growing that way as each new cabin is finished, a new family moves in, and we're going to have several of those coming up in the coming weeks. So I think it's a great thing to talk about today. So, you know, maybe from your perspective, you and Jeff have built this team. You know, why don't you talk about but some of the strengths of the team, the things that you love about working with them day in and day out?
Yeah, well, I guess the first thing, you know, because I do get the question a lot about, gosh, this place is so big, how many people does it take to run it? And so, you know, we've had the same core team now since the very beginning. There's been others that have kind of come and gone, but when I look at the management of the different areas, and what I mean by areas, I mean when we think about the teams, which I prefer teams over staff, because it's really much more of a team than it is people just working for us. It's a relational thing, people who bought in, people who care. But you know, our teams, the way we recognize them, is kind of the animal husbandry team or the animal team, and we have. And certainly some people move in and out of these, but by and large, we have an animal team. We have kind of the garden team. We have the construction team. And then we have kind of the operations team who handles, and the latter one, maybe if it's not obvious, they handle whether it's the grape trellis needs some work, or the weeding around the blackberries. Like, they're the ones that really put the finishing touches and the beauty on the place beyond the natural beauty. And so when you think about kind of those four buckets, collectively, I would say, and then we have some administrative team, you know, financial and those, but when you add them all up, it's about 25 people. And that's a pretty good number of people. And the thing that runs through all of them is, by and large, most of them are from this area. Almost everybody is from the greater, I would say, within 45 minutes of here. Most of them believe that what they're doing is more than a job. It's I think if you were to ask them, they would say it's more, maybe a calling may be a strong word, but they feel like they're part of something bigger than just what they wake up to do each day. And so that's kind of what I think comes through when you're describing that. And they're all very talented in their own way. And maybe some of them were specifically trained or developed a discipline through a structured training program or a mentor, whatever the case may be. But all of them are very talented and very humble. And so when you think about all of these qualities that make up the team, you can begin to envision how and why you and I feel so strongly connected with this group of people. And so my experience has been working with them over the last little while that there's not a lot of motivating that's necessary. Like, they've already bought into the vision. They have already bought into the fact that while all of us, me included, are here to serve the owners in a way, you know, and when I use the word serve, I mean promote the experience to the owners in a way that is different than any other experience. And so while we all understand that and they're on board with doing that, they thrive on the relational side of being with the owners as well. So said differently, it's not like it's not like we're necessarily, the staff, we're not coming over for dinner, but at the same time, we're spending time in the garden talking. We're building these bonds, and we are doing activities together, purposeful activities. So as I think about what it means to be an owner out here, certainly it's all of the things that we've been talking about, but the added benefit are the relationships that you get to build with the team that makes this place functional on a day-to-day basis. And so as one of the visionaries and co-founders here, that's something that money can't buy. No. That has to be people coming in a way that's almost feels predestined or called, if you will. And so, it's an incredible bonus, for lack of a better word. Yeah. That's been my experience working with everybody. And these are, and I tell people all the time, and maybe I've mentioned this on here. I know I tell my kids this, I talk about it with people all the time, but we walk through life so often, all of us, and we're always thinking about, let's pick on the farm for a second. I want to buy a cabin so that I can live off the land, or so that I can develop a skill set, or so that, there's always a so that implies an out there activity. But in reality, one of the things that I think is most powerful is the beauty in what we do here isn't the so that. The so that's there, but the beauty of what we're doing is the walking in day to day. And it's those relationships with the team, with each other, with other owners. That's the magic of the farm.
Yeah. A couple of things that come to mind is there's not really a that's not my job mentality. Everything, and I'm sure this is the way it is on, traditional farms. You grew up on a farm, you had a bunch of people working, no matter what it is, there's a task that needs to be done. Everybody jumps in. Now you described that there's different teams. Yes, there's different teams, but there's also a lot of cross department work that has to take place depending on what's going on at the farm at any given time, including putting on, many people may not know this, including hosting our farm to table dinners. Yeah. So the team is directly involved with helping greet and host people.
Yeah. Which is it's a great point to bring up, because I was talking a little bit about how talented each one of them was. You had made the comment about some of them are camera shy. Mm-hmm. But the one thing that overlays that as well is all of them have a hospitable spirit about them. And I think it's part of the culture here in the greater Folkestone, Charlton County area. Yep. I think they understand that hospitality is more about serving someone, or more about, performing a role for someone. It's really at its core about making someone feel comfortable and welcome. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's something else that's so neat about our team is each of them have been gifted with a spirit of hospitality. Mm-hmm. And so you've got not only their talent, where they're, whether it's a green thumb to grow things, or whether it's the vision and clarity on how to build something straight, regardless of the talent, they're also hospitable. And that hospitality bleeds not through just the farm to table dinners, but it's also the motivation behind that's the resistance to that's not my job, right? In other words, if the chief end goal of being part of the team here is we want to create an experience for people, well then that's not my job. That doesn't really fall into the paradigm, right? That's counter to what we're trying to accomplish. And so that's something, and it's part of, I think, the culture that's been built here. It's exciting to think about. It's both exciting to think about what we've done, and it's humbling to think about if we had to do it again. I don't know how we assemble this group of people again. Yeah. I've always talked about this potentially being a replicable model. Right.
But if you're not replicating it in South Georgia, to your point, do you have, it reminds me, and you were describing that, I did a study abroad program in London when I was in college in the mid 90s. And I got a job while I was working over there. I was working in a small restaurant in Islington that was co-owned by an Egyptian chef and an English woman who ran the front of the house. And we had 15 employees in 13 different nationalities. We had people from all over Eastern Europe. But for those of us who served, I was a bartender. For those of us who served, we all came from the colonies. There were Kiwis and Americans but there were no young British people who worked there. And I remember asking the proprietor, the woman who ran it, and she says, yes, it's not in our culture. Like people do not, young people in our country specifically, they don't see getting a job at a restaurant as a valid side job while they're working through college. Whereas here, it's very common to be in the service industry. But you take that up one more notch when you talk about the South, not just specifically South Georgia, but the South, whereas we see it as a privilege to be able to serve somebody and to make them, to your point, to make people feel welcome. It's not just a job. That's what you do.
My mother-in-law, for years, for those people who aren't from the South, they may not know this word, but she taught cotillion. And cotillion is it's basically the learning of manners. And she used to tell people, and I thought this was so beautiful, when you think about manners a lot of times, or cotillion, or to some degree hospitality, some people can think it's pretentious. They can be intimidated by it, or they could maybe even frown upon learning these things because they're outdated. But at the root, the whole idea of learning these things is solely for one thing, and that's to put your guest at ease. So it really, the heart of manners, the heart of hospitality isn't to be superior. It isn't to create an air about a place, but it's really to create a place where people can come in and feel welcome and at ease. And I think that's a beautiful thing that the team does here at the farm so naturally. And I think it does come from the culture. So for sure. Just real quick, another thing that I think about a lot, and I feel like you and I may have had this conversation, not here, but elsewhere. I've had the opportunity to start a number of communities from scratch over my career. And one of the things that's always true, there's a lot of things that are always true, but in the context of our discussion, one of the things I think that's always true is those who first come and adopt, the early adopters, the early owners in our case, the early residents or whatever else, when there is a cohesive intentionality that exists, there is this purposeful trajectory that is impossible to define, but is almost impossible to stop as well. And so we've talked about this in the early days with you and Jenny, and even with, this idea of kind of farm ambassadorship, which I just love. It's like being at the farm, I think it's both off-putting to have a rule book this thick, but it's also kind of necessary. And so trying to establish the balance between making sure that people who come along feel comfortable, but then also are walking within the guardrails of what it means to live in a regenerative, active farm area. And so I get excited too about not just the team, the staff team, but also the new owners. Like when we're talking about these new owners that are coming in, like having both a program and an intentionality around we're not making rules, but we're creating a space that we want to live within. So, I mean, how does that strike you? Is that something that's exciting for you?
Well, it is, and that definitely was one of the draws for Jenny and I to be here so early, is that we knew that we would have just inherently, because we were the first ones here, some opportunity to help establish the norms of the community. We don't have a monopoly on that. We don't have exclusivity to that.
Right.
It's just that we happen to be the first ones here. And
which, by the way, those are the pros. There's lots of cons too. We won't talk about those, but
not nearly as many as we prepared ourselves for. I will say that.
Fair enough.
But so there was a lot of learning that needed to be done for anybody. This is it may come with a rule book. We don't want to use a rule book, but it really doesn't come with a user manual either, And so the user manual is for the farm for new residents is not only the current residents who live here to say, well, this is how we do things. And it's important for all of us to be open-minded because there's a lot of very bright people who are moving here, intelligent people here who have other experiences who actually can help us improve, right?
Absolutely.
So having the spirit of open-mindedness and continuous improvement, just because the way that Jenny and I happen to do things here doesn't mean that it's the best, but that's a built-in part of the norm, right? Is continuous improvement. But getting back to the staff's role in that is, take the garden team, for example, in helping new residents as they move in understand, what's appropriate to if I want to go in the standing gardens and because we've talked about we're not going to deliver food to people when they get here. It's ingrained in the culture and the philosophy of the farm that you go out and harvest your own food.
Exactly.
Well, if I've never done that before, I need to know the proper way to do that. What's the best way to do that for the farm and for the benefit of everyone? And so that's how I love how the team, again, getting back into the team, just integrates themselves so easily and naturally into that conversation, making themselves available while they're working to bring people along, inviting opportunities for residents to volunteer should they so choose. I saw Barb, who runs the greenhouse, just earlier this morning, and she was letting me know that they're going to be doing some planting some new seeds. Which is always an exciting time in the greenhouse. To see some of that turnover. And I was like, let me know we're going to be there because I know Jenny likes to be hands-on. She loves to go over there and help. So all those things are baked into this really beautiful program. And, look, it's going to come with its problems and challenges. It's a farm. It's people. People are messy in community. So to the extent that, again, we can, leverage the principles of the farm, what's important to this way of life, keeping an open-minded spirit, and knowing that this experience is going to be different than probably most places anyone has ever lived.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that's the draw to it because it is different than the way most people have lived.
Yeah.
At least for me, and I've shared this, I've longed for, having neighbors that, have the opportunity to get to know.
Yeah.
That we're not just, closed inside our boxes with our garage doors down and our windows up in our cars as we go through the neighborhood. That's not the case here.
No, it's
front
not.
Porches are close to the road, and you want to stop and say hi to somebody when you see them walking through the farm.
Yeah. So I think we're nearing an end here. Let me ask you a question. So for the person who's listening to this, who has not historically been engaged in their neighborhood, they're the guy or the gal that parks a car inside the garage and they get in with the windows rolled up and they leave in the morning, go straight to work, come in, close the garage behind them, stay inside. They're just they're in a neighborhood, but they're not engaged in any way. Maybe purposefully, maybe not. What do you say to someone where what we're talking about is such a far distance from what they're used to? Like, what do you say to a person like that? First of all, I guess they wouldn't even be listening to us if they weren't at least open to the idea.
That's right.
But what do you say to someone like that who may think that this isn't for them? Because I know you, and you're not. You're an introvert.
I'm an introvert.
Absolutely an introvert. So to another introvert out there who may be hearing this and hasn't tasted it yet, talk to me from your introvert side.
That's a great point. And so being introverted, what I had to really learn about myself, and I didn't do this until I was adult
Yeah.
and had spent, more than a decade in sales of all
Right.
things. And through my own personal journey and learning more about myself and the type of person I am, what it means to me to be introverted, it just means that I have a lower amount of social energy, right? I have social energy, and it's very important, but I need to protect that social energy and make sure that it's used in the best way. And when I know that it's time for me to retreat because I need to recharge my batteries, I know when to do that. And so what I would say is, for someone who's listening to this, who's introverted and be like, I really don't want to get to know my neighbors that well.
Right.
What I will tell you is that the interaction that you have with people will be that the smaller amount of social credit that you have, social time spent credit that you have, is going to be far more purposeful and meaningful. It's going to be more rewarding to you for the time that you do spend with other people.
I like that.
And I never was a big let's have dinner with everybody in the neighborhood all the time.
Right.
But we do that now a couple of times a week.
Yeah.
And the level and depth of our conversations with people is far greater than anything. You get right past the surface level of conversations with people here at the farm. That's been my experience. And that's what I enjoy.
I really like that because, people are shocked when they find out that I'm also an introvert. And I think what so many of us introverts just despise is superficial small talk. Like the need or the situational requirement to just talk about something just to be together. And so certainly there is small, we can talk about the weather and we can talk about other things, but I love what you said because I do find that it's a lot easier to connect at a deeper level for me as an introvert, and it doesn't require as much as that social energy as it does when I'm trying to come up with a topic to talk about with a stranger or something. So I guess the maybe said differently, the canvas of the farm just lends itself to being a place where us introverts can be a little bit more at ease whenever we connect with folks.
Yeah.
And the extroverts have no problem with that, obviously.
That's right.
Well, I love it, man. Who would have ever thought we would have talked about, ended on the teams and stuff. So
no idea.
I love it because I love each and every one of the ones on our team. I mean, they're so special to both of us. And so thank you if you're one of the teammates and you're watching this. All right, one word close.
One word close. Community. I'm done.
Teamwork. And I'm out.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
All right.